How are you, Dan?
Hi, Rabbi Czapnik.
Hi, Bracha. Hi, Diane.
Very good.
Okay. Hello, Beverly. Hello. M's iPad. Hi. You have to unmute yourself, Diane.
I'm unmuted. Hello, hello.
How you doing?
Live from Jerusalem.
Great. Very nice. How you doing? Okay?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
Glad
Great
to hear.
see you. I'm so
Good to
happy.
see you as well. All right. So the Parsha facts that I give out here for those that are present, usually when we send out the video of the class, you can click and get the download for the Parsha facts if you want your own copy. Thank you. So this week's Parsha is Beshalach. Beshalach means when he sent. It's in Chumash Shemais, the book of Exodus. It's the fourth portion in it. Chapter 13, verse 17 through chapter 17, verse 16. And you hand the article Chumash is page 366, 393. There are 116 verses in the portion. It has only one commandment, which is out of the 613. It's mitzvah 24, the prohibition of going out of the limits on Shabbos. We're going to be talking about the route to Israel, Pharaoh changing his mind, the fear, God's assurance, the miracle of splitting the sea, the Egyptian punished song by the sea, women's song, bitter waters, manna from heaven, preparing for Sabbath, water from the rock, eternal struggle with Amalek. So these are some of the topics we're going to touch on today. This Shabbos actually has a special name. It's called Shabbos Shira, the Shabbos of song. And the reason why it's called the Shabbos Shira, the Shabbos of song, is because the Jewish people spontaneously sang a song of gratitude to God by the sea after the splitting of the sea when they were saved and the Egyptians were drowned. Everybody clear? Good? So, the Parsha begins with I have in my notes, somebody must have asked once about, is there a historical documentation of some sort other than the Torah about the Exodus? And the research says that there's something called the impure papyrus, which is apparently some document that indicates about that, talking about the Exodus, if you don't want a non-Torah source for it. So just for your edification purposes, I throw that out. Okay, after I broke my teeth once, I want to do it again. Okay, impure papyrus, IMPUPWERPAPYRUS. Okay, and you'll have to pronounce it backwards next week, so you have to practice that. All right. So God takes the Jewish people out of the land of Egypt. But he takes them the longer way. Hi, guys. He takes them the longer way. Hello. Hey, how you doing? He takes them the longer way. Hello. He takes them the longer way so that they shouldn't have to deal with the Philistines and regret leaving. That right after they get out, they're already confronted with another enemy, and God felt that was a little too much for them to have to deal with. Even that would have been the more direct route, but he didn't to the land of Israel. But he didn't want them to go that way so that they shouldn't regret leaving in the first place. This is a very, very important idea, because when we make the right choice, it doesn't mean that automatically you're getting onto the highway and it's being the freeway and it's just smooth riding. It doesn't mean that necessarily at all. And unfortunately, many times there's something called buyer's regret. What? I bought this. So let me tell you a very famous verse that we say in our prayers and a very beautiful interpretation from the Vilna Gaon. The verse in our prayers we say V'haser Satan milfanenu umeacharenu, and God, please take away the evil inclination from before us and behind us. So what does that mean? Take away the evil inclination from before us and behind us. Anybody have a thought what that might mean? Go ahead.
Past bad habits.
Okay, so before us, that could be, that's a good answer. Before us represents when the evil inclination standing in front of us and saying, stop, don't do the right thing. No, come on. You're better off watching a Netflix movie than visiting the guy in the hospital. No, just stay, relax. You're tired. Don't go visit the guy in the hospital. So that's before us. And behind us is when he's pushing us to do the wrong thing. Okay, so that's the simple interpretation of that verse.
This also be regretting doing the right thing.
That's correct. That's the Vilna Gaon. Excellent. The Vilna Gaon says, though, before us is when he's trying to stop us from doing the right thing before we do it. And behind us is after we've done it. Oh, why'd you do that? Look what happened. Because you did the right thing, you lost out. Right?
So if you regret doing the right thing, how do you know what the right thing is?
Well, you got to find out what the right thing is. But regretting it doesn't mean that it wasn't right.
Okay.
No, that's important. I'll say that again. Regretting doing the right thing means that it looks like it didn't work out well, but it was the right thing. So that's an important point. Doing the right thing doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to, wow, all the pieces fell into place. Oh, doesn't necessarily mean that. And that's very, very important to realize. And that's one of the things Hashem was trying to avoid the Jewish people to feel when they left Egypt. But this is a very, very important point. We have to do, ours is to do, whether the results work out the way we want is not necessarily so. Dave, if you want a Parsha fact sheet and a flyer for an upcoming class, you can get one up here. Take the flyer and take it. The bumps in the road are bumps in the road. I mean, take a look. We had, for those of you who are here in the Chumash class, the beginning of Genesis. Avrohom is told to go to the land, and he gets to the land, and then there's a hunger. You know, what happened? I did what you said. Well, that doesn't mean, it doesn't always mean that things are going to be peachy. And that's an important, very important idea to be aware of. A lot of times we want instant gratification. We want to make the right choice and I want to feel great about it. And I want everyone to say, yay, you made the right choice and all the things will work out perfectly. Doesn't necessarily work out that way. And that's a very, very important concept that we should avoid the evil inclination stopping us after the fact when we made the right choice. And it didn't necessarily work out the way we thought. It's very important because it's a big issue. People have this all the time. Steve, go ahead.
I'll people doing the right thing, and then I'll do it, and then I'll get like a reaction, like either I don't feel like maybe like he said, I don't regret it, or people will push back from what I do, and I'm just like, man, maybe I'm not doing the right thing.
Well, the truth of the matter is that's why a person should have a rabbi to ask. So what's the right thing in this situation? Am I right? Am I wrong? Should I do this? Should I not do this? So that's an important idea. That this way you have an outside source to. I don't know if I think I may have mentioned. I don't know if I ever mentioned this. One of the old places where the jailer was, my office was in the back, near the alley, and somebody was listening to Christian radio, like sitting in the alley, and And I was busy doing my thing. I wasn't. And then, but my ears perked up when a question was asked. The question was like a call-in show or something. And someone said, how do you know what's the right thing to do? I said, oh, be interesting to hear. I wonder what they're going to answer. And then the person who was on the phone answered, well, deep down, you know what the right thing is. Follow your conscience. I said, Judaism doesn't say that because we have a vested interest in wanting to do the right thing about what we think is the right thing because what we want. So we have a bias that's going to make our inner conscience tell us, yeah, this is the right thing. You should have the fifth piece of cake because, you're really hungry. You deserve it, That's why we have a Torah, we have commandments, we have the code of Jewish law, and we have hopefully mentors that we can turn to say, this is what I thought is the right thing to do. What should I do? I'm going to pick a simplistic example, but I'll just throw it out anyway. Hopefully I'll think of a better one, but I had a woman who her brother was graduating from, I don't know what, college or high school, and the family very much wanted her to come to the graduation, which was Saturday afternoon. And she said, I can't go. I told them I can't go because it's my Shabbos. I said, well, what time's the graduation? So she told me, what time will it be over? It says, well, it's over. Past Shabbos is over. So I said, so why don't you go find a hotel nearby and then keep Shabbos there. And then right after Shabbos, you go over. She says, oh, but that's going to be so hard. I'll be away from the community. I said, yeah, but for one thing, it's an inconvenience, but that's the right thing to do. And she was like, all rattled because I was telling her to keep Shabbos. I said, you have to prepare for it. You have to prepare food. You have to prepare some books. So you keep Shabbos right in the hotel. But if it's important to your family that you be there, there's a way of working it out. Not all the time, but sometimes there is. So it just, like I said, the right thing isn't always the easiest thing. And the right thing isn't always going to work out the way we think, but it's important that we do the right thing anyway. And it's good to get advice on what to do. And even that, and it's a lesson for us, because here Hashem is not teaching them to, you have to power through, there's other people that are going to fight with you. You have to know how to grow not too fast and not too slow. There's a balance. Too fast isn't good because you might climb a ladder too fast. You can fall very easily. Too slow isn't good because you're being spiritually lazy. So again, that's why it's important to have good mentors to lead us. And the Torah tells us that Moshe took the bones of Yosef out of Egypt. Yosef knew that he would be buried in Egypt. Why did he think that?
Because the family wouldn't have the authority to take him out.
A, the family wouldn't have the authority to take him out, correct. B, he's the viceroy in Egypt, so they're not going to just let him go. He's going to be, he's going to be buried somewhere in Egypt. I'll tell you a cute story. I know a rabbi who took his family to the Reagan Museum, and he realized that it's late in the afternoon, so he has to do afternoon services. So he went outside and took out his prayer book and he did mincha, did afternoon services. And security came over to him and said, we noticed you were praying by Reagan's tomb, and we were very impressed. And he hadn't realized that Reagan was actually buried in the Reagan Library. And they were like, oh, we're so honored, feels so good. He didn't argue with them. It was just very sweet. So therefore, Yosef's bones were buried. Yosef's body was buried in Egypt, and actually they put it into the Nile River because Yosef brought such blessing to Egypt. They wanted A, for his remains to remain in Egypt, and B, for there be blessing in it, and C, he promised them that they would, when they leave, they should take him. This way they won't be able to get him out. But Moshe said a prayer by the river, and the coffin came up, and he was able to take it out and leave Egypt with it. Now, interestingly, yeah, that's a midrash.
How would it be in a river? Doesn't rivers take things away or wear them out?
If it's heavy, it sinks to the bottom.
They had it like encased.
Right, that's correct. They had him encased. Now, interestingly enough, our sages say something interesting. The Jewish people were involved in a mitzvah at the time. The mitzvah was that they would ask the Egyptians for things before they left, because Hashem had promised the patriarchs that the Jews would leave with wealth. So they asked the Egyptians for things, and the Egyptians surprisingly graciously gave of their things to the Jews. But Moshe was striving for a mitzvah, and he did a better mitzvah because he was busy with Yosef's body. Now, they were also fulfilling a commandment because God was the one who said they should get it. So why was the commandment of Yosef's bones better? And Moshe is given credit for doing the better mitzvah of taking Yosef's bones out rather than going and asking the neighbors for gifts. What do you think?
Well, it was fulfilled the request of Yosef, honor Yosef. It wasn't.
It was fulfilling Yosef's request, correct? Very good. Dave, what else?
What does the rabbi mean by better?
Our sages say that he grabbed a mitzvah, that it was better. That it was better. What Moshe did by getting Yosef's bones was better than the mitzvah they did of asking people for the money.
Because it's a chesed shalemes.
It's a chesed
Perhaps.
shalemes. It's a loving kindness of truth because he's doing it for the dead. That's good. What else? What? Yeah, good. Excellent. That's good.
You can say father, but honor.
It's giving honor to Yosef. That's good. That's also good. Also, getting the wealth is self-serving. I mean, they're fulfilling a commandment, but it's for them. This is for there's no personal gain. And thirdly, I think and not thirdly, even more than that, there's another idea here. I used to be a water safety instructor many moons ago. And one of the things we learned was if you're by the beach and somebody or anywhere and someone needs help and you need an ambulance, you don't say, call an ambulance. Why not? Why? What? Because everybody's going to say, sure, they're going to call. You say, you call an ambulance. You designate one person to do it. So getting out Yosef's bones wasn't Moshe's responsibility. Whose responsibility was it? Everybody's. And when it's everybody's responsibility, who does it? Usually, nobody. Right? So he took the responsibility for himself. Hi, Dave.
Sorry, I'm late, Rabbi.
Snow was too much for you?
Yeah.
So when there's nobody's when it's everybody's responsibility, usually nobody does it. So Moshe stepped up and took responsibility, and he got Yosef's bones out. So there's a lot of reasons why it's a better mitzvah. Yes, please go right ahead.
The Israelites,
Gifts.
gifts, right? So that sustained Egypt after the Exodus because they did that mitzvah of giving to the Israelites.
No, not necessarily. They ended up getting. What can I do for you, Dave? Want a Parsha fix? You getting it for him? Very nice of you.
Okay, so that wasn't like seen as a mitzvah by God.
No, I mean you have to understand they owed plenty to the Jews. They were working for a long time, not being paid, so it wasn't a merit for them.
So did he sort of even things out at least a little bit?
No, not at all.
So there was no merit.
I'm not going to say no merit at all. It's something, there's. It's a difficult subject. After World War II, the West German government decided to give payment for Jews who had been damaged during the Holocaust. The term that is used for that, the German term is called Wiedergutmachung, which means making things better or good again. Now, many Jews did take the money because they needed the money, Many didn't because they didn't want the money. But the word is revolting to me as a child of Holocaust survivors. Making things good again. I lost my entire extended family. My parents were the sole survivors of both homes. My grandparents, uncles, aunts, everything killed out. I grew up without grandparents, uncles, aunts, first cousins, none of that, zero. So how do you make up for my father being in a concentration camp for 5 years? Like there's no making up. There's compensation of some sort to help along the way, but you know what I'm saying? I'm just giving you a context. Go ahead. I'm sorry? Yes. Yeah, both my parents are from Poland. Correct. A blessed memory. Yeah. So Moshe grabbed a better mitzvah. What they did was a mitzvah, but he captured the bigger mitzvah. Now, the Jewish people everyone thinks the GPS is a new invention, but actually it was when the Jews were in the desert, they had a GPS. It was called the God Positioning Center program because there was a cloud, it was a divine cloud. And the divine cloud during the day showed the Jewish people when to travel, and when it stopped, that means that they had to stop. And at night, it was a fire cloud that they would show them where to go and when to stop. So they followed the cloud of Hashem. This is a important idea. And we sometimes don't try following the cloud, but we sometimes get hints about ideas of what we should do. And it's up to us to decide to make sure that we're following sometimes, and it's hard to know. We don't always know, and that's, again, it's important. The joke is about the guy who says, if there's a parking spot in front of the bakery, it means I'm supposed to stop to get donuts. And after circling the block 12 times, the spot finally opened, and he said, "Thank you, Hashem, I got your sign." So it doesn't really work that way. So you have to watch out. Don't make your own signs. And we don't know why Hashem does different things. But sometimes we have opportunities. You see a flyer, you see someone mentioned something, and maybe it's a sign of something you can do. And yes, it's important to get good interpretation to make sure that you're interpreting it right. I have in my notes here, Mildred, I have something from Malka, something from you. It says, follow the cloud, not the crowd, which is a very good line.
No, I got it from someone else, I'm sure.
I don't know. It's credited to you. That's what my notes say. So I just want you to know.
Thank you.
You notice when I force a result, it usually doesn't turn out right.
Well, it depends. Sometimes we need to force the result, even if it doesn't turn out so well. So you never know. That's what I'm saying. I know. That's what I'm here for. It's called the Jewish Learning Exchange. You learn stuff. That's the goal. All right. So the idea of following the signs is the deeper idea is also that we should realize that we're not in charge. That we're not in charge. Yes.
But the consequences might not be pleasant, and you might interpret that as a sign that you shouldn't have done the right thing. But it's not necessarily a sign.
That's correct. That's correct. You're absolutely right. Like I said, sometimes doing the right thing, it doesn't work out the way we think, doesn't automatically mean that I shouldn't have done that. 100%. 100%. I have to come up with a better example. But there are many times where, hey, I'll give you one example. There was a man who had a big business deal, and a business deal that was coming up, and he went to a great Hasidic rabbi, and he asked him, should I should I do the deal? And the rabbi said, yes, I recommend that you do it, which is like, okay, great. And the deal blew up in his face and he lost all the money. And he still followed the rabbi, even though the advice seemed to be bad advice. And the rabbi was very impressed that he followed him, even though the advice didn't work out. And what ended up happening is he had to leave Poland and move to Israel because he didn't have the resources to continue in Poland. What ended up happening is World War II came around and he wasn't there for it. So was it bad? Was it good? So it was good. It ended up being good, even though it seemed like it was the worst disastrous decision that he ever made. I'll share a different story in a different vein. One of my JLE students moved back east to New York for dating purposes. And I got a call from a woman who was curious about her as a potential mate for her son. What is called a shidduch inquiry, to find out about a potential match. And I had a nice discussion with the mom on the phone. And I get a call from the woman, my student, said, oh, she has a wonderful opportunity. She was offered to take a group of beginner students to Israel for an outreach organization. I said, why did you go to New York? You went for dating. And I just got a call about someone potential. And I was very impressed with the mother. I thought she asked good questions. She seemed very nice. I don't think you should go on the trip because if a date comes up, I don't want you to miss the opportunity. She says, but it's a free trip to Israel. I said, I know. And we're doing outreach. I said, it's wonderful to do outreach, but the priority now is to do this and that and the other. And I said, if no dates come up, then I guess you could go. But if this date come up, especially with this woman's son, I want you to look into it because I was very impressed with the mom. So the rabbi of the organization calls me. I need her to lead this group. I said, you're in New York. You are going to have a hard time finding a woman to lead a group. If you have a hard time, I will help you. There are plenty of quality women that could help you lead the group. And the woman and the match came up and she followed my instructions and they're happily married. So again, was it a hard call for her to accept not getting a free trip to Israel? Yes, it was. Did she think I was wrong? She wasn't sure, but all right, but I have to follow your advice. I don't really want to, but she did. And Baruch Hashem, the end, it worked out. Now, again, this was, Hashem popped an idea into my head and that's what I shared with her. And Baruch Hashem, it worked out. But I'm just saying, we don't know the end result. Had it not worked out, it still was, I think, the right advice for me to give her. But so again, the results are not a proof about whether it's right or not. The main thing is we have to have people that we can trust, that we can listen to, that can give us some guidance, and hopefully it will work out for the best because we did that. I mean, again, it's just another subject for another time, which is the importance of having a mentor. Because I know a lot of people who don't have mentors and they end up making a lot of mistakes in their lives. And rabbis are not perfect. We're all fallible. We're humans, but at the same time, it's important to have that kind of anchor. All right. So what happens is the Egyptians give chase. And by the way, one of the things that happened is Moshe told them to stop by the idol of the Egyptians that was in the desert. So it made it look like, to really trick the Egyptians to think, oh, they're really stuck. They don't know where to go, or they can't go because the power of the idol is messing them up. But now the Jews are by the Sea of Reeds, and they don't have where to go. The Egyptians are giving chase. They're coming with chariots and giving chase. And some of the Jews, some say maybe we should just give up, suicide. Maybe we should fight. Maybe we should, surrender and just go back to Egypt. And Moshe says, don't worry, Hashem will take care. As a matter of fact, one of the commentaries say that there are 4 different issues that people had, and Moshe answered all of them in the verses in the portion. One group who gave up hope, and some maybe said, let's just give up and commit suicide. And Moshe told them, stand still. The second group who wanted to go back to Egypt, he says, you're not going to see the Egyptians anymore. You're going to be done with them. The third group who trusted in God and wanted to fight with the Egyptians says, this time God's going to fight for you. You don't have to fight. You don't have to fight. And the fourth group, the righteous who wanted to cry out, he said, you don't even have to cry out. Just be quiet. God's taking care of everything. So what does Hashem say? Go ahead. Go ahead where? There were no boats, no kayaks, no motorboats, no catamarans. Well, where were they going to go? So Nachshon ben Aminadav, the great Nachshon ben Aminadav, shows tremendous faith and jumps into the water. And just Hashem said, go, we're going to go. And what happens? He didn't worry what others thought, and he didn't know what was the right thing. Don't wait, just do the right thing. And miraculously, what happened? The sea split. And the Jews had a clear, easy, paved path. It wasn't muddy, it was a paved path to be able to cross the Sea of Reeds. Our sages tell us what caused the splitting of the sea. One of the things that caused it was Nachshon ben Aminadav jumping in was a great start. And again, he didn't know what the result would be. He didn't know that it would split. But one of the things that, I'm sorry?
Walking in, that's midrash.
Yeah, I give you other information that's not in the book. Correct. The inside scoop at JLE. All right. The other thing was the box with the body of Yosef, the bones of Yosef. Why was that something that would be the merit to split the sea? So what was Yosef? Yosef was known as Yosef HaTzadik, the righteous Yosef. What made him be called the righteous Yosef? Where he resisted the temptation of the wife of Potiphar, who came on very strong to him, and he resisted that. So because he went against human nature is, a woman is showing some very strong signs of interest, human nature is to succumb to that. But he resisted that. And because he went against nature, so the water went against its nature. It's measure for measure. Everyone get that? Everyone hear it? Very powerful idea. So Hashem did the exact same thing. And there were many, many miracles, and we talk about the miracles Pesach night by the Seder, that it had even more than Egypt. There was a pathway for each tribe, but they could see each other, so they had some assurance. If it was dry for them to walk, it wasn't muddy, and they could drink the water from the wall. And then, as they're at the end, the Egyptians give chase. They say, hey, they're trying to escape, let's go get them. And they go into the sea, and all of a sudden it gets hot and muddy, and they're stuck and they can't go. And the sea collapses on them, and the Egyptians are drowned. And this is a measure for measure punishment for the Egyptians, as they drowned the Jewish babies. They threw them into the water. So now they're being drowned. By the way, parenthetically, I will say they have found remnants of chariots. You can Google that. You'll find they did some discoveries, found remnants of chariots on the bottom of the Sea of Reeds. So that to me, if you can't find it, that's okay too, because I believe the Torah. But if you like to see that. It is interesting that they did find remnants of chariots on the bottom of the sea.
It says it through the wind blew all night, so it was a miracle that they were aware of it happening, like in the morning.
Well, of course, they were very well aware. To see a sea split, you got to really, yeah, it's impressive. Impressive feat.
So it's like the wind blowing after it's split, it's keeping the water.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it like I said, there were many combinations of miracles that were going on because it's a solid wall of water, but they could stick their hand and get a drink. They could see.
Nature, it's like it looks natural, like wind.
It doesn't look natural to split a sea, but there are obviously things in nature that because that's where we are. We're in nature. And the Jewish people sing a song by the sea, and they start, Uz Yashir Moshe. Then Moshe sang and the Jewish people sang. And the word Uz then has a dual meaning because it means past and future.
Wait, what's the word?
Uz, Aleph Zion, Uz, then. Okay, Uz Yashir Moshe. We say it actually in our morning prayers, the song by the sea. And it's spontaneous prayer because in the future we will be singing also the song. Now, what's interesting is the layout in the Torah is the article mimics how it's written in the Torah, and I just want to show you the format. It's different than a regular text. It's like bricks. It's like tiered. If you're following inside in the article Chumash, it's begins on the bottom of page 374, but 376 and 378 has it. And here, I'll show it to you on the screen. So you see the tiered level of the words. So it's like a brick wall here. You can see it up here. Those of you that are here, you can look here if you don't have a Chumash in front of you. So it's a song by the sea. And the song by the sea has many beautiful interpretations, but there's an important lesson. What does a song have? A song always has highs and lows. And that is the song of life, highs and lows. But if you understand that
Highs and lows, Rabbi? I didn't hear.
Highs and lows, Michelle,
Okay,
you know the notes.
thank you. No, I didn't hear. I thought you said
Yes.
eyes and nose.
Not eyes and nose. No, music doesn't have eyes and nose. It has highs and lows. And that's life. And that's to sing a song by the sea. They didn't just say, yay, we won, the Egyptians are gone. And the Sfasema says that the deeper understanding is they were able to sing a song of praise even about the low times, about the bad times, because they saw the benefit and that they finally have this revelation now. And what ended up happening is the Egyptians were washed up onto where they were, so they were able to see that that in fact the Egyptians were really gone and they're not going to be dealing with them anymore. So life is the same way. So one of the verses is, "This is my God, and I will glorify him." So first of all, one interpretation of that is that they were able to see the revelation of God. They were saying this, when you say this, you're able to point. God revealed himself to the Jewish people. Also, this verse teaches us that we should beautify a mitzvah, have a nice sukkah, have a nice menorah to beautify the mitzvah.
Where do we find this?
The word Zeh Keli V'Amveu, this is my God, and I will glorify him. How do you glorify God? By when you do the mitzvah, you do it nicely. I will share a story with you related to what we discussed before. There was a man who kept Shabbos. And in the United States, there was something called blue laws. Anybody need water? Please come help yourself too. And you know what blue laws were?
About drinking?
No. Right. Blue laws were that there was a 6-day work week and you had to keep your store closed on Sunday. So that was the Christian Sabbath. But you had to work on Saturday. So there were Jews who Some Jews unfortunately fell to the temptation of working on Shabbos, but others did not. And this fellow had a job, and every week he'd lose it because he wouldn't come in for Shabbos. And he kept the papers, the pink slips that he got. And when the holiday of Sukkot came, he took all of those pink slips and hung it as a decoration on the sukkah. So they said, what are you doing? The kids asked him, he says, because I'm very proud. I'm keeping Shabbos. Did it work out well for him? No, it wasn't easy. He was having to find a new job, and some weeks I'm sure he didn't have a job. But he used the pink slips as a decoration. So to beautify the mitzvah. So when we say beautify, usually we mean not with pink slips. Usually you make it look nice. But that's what he did, which was very special. And when you do something, you want to do it the best possible way. The great Hasidic master, the Kapushnitzer Rebbe, had purchased a new hat for himself, and there was a man who came to the door who was very poor, and his hat was beyond recognition. So the Kapushnitzer Rebbe gave him his new hat. And one of his followers says, Rebbe, why don't you give him your old hat? Why do you give him your new hat for? Excuse me. So the Rebbe said, which hat am I going to wear in the world to come? In the world to come, I'm going to wear the good hat I gave him. So you want me to wear an old hat in the world to come? I'd rather wear for eternity. I want to wear the nice hat. Because he gets a bigger reward for giving him the nicer hat. And this is really the other thing our sages learned from this verse is to beautify Hashem, is to emulate God. How do you emulate God? Just as he is merciful, we should be merciful. As he is compassionate, we should be compassionate. So that's the other aspect of how do we glorify God, by one, beautifying the mitzvahs that we do, doing things in honor of the mitzvah, and two, trying to emulate God. Another verse talks about Hashem ish milchama, Hashem shemo. God is a man of war, and God is his name. But it's that God is a combination. He can be strong and powerful and merciful at the same time. He's punishing the Egyptians, and at the exact same time, the Jews are going out into through the other land. It's not a contradiction. This is what we get in our Shema, in our affirmation of our belief. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, our God. Shema Yisrael, Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's the tetragram, the full letter name of God, which is the name of mercy. Elokeinu, our God, is the God of justice. So the same God in the same verse of Shema, but it's still Hashem Echad, the God of mercy. It's one. Ultimately, it's God of mercy. So God has both judgment and compassion at the same time, but he is ultimately is the compassionate God, and God can use both at the same time. We see that there's different languages of used in this song by the sea, that it's saying that they were like stone, they were like straw, they were like lead, and it really depends on the Egyptian. All were true, because if the person was very wicked, then he was like straw going up and down in the water. If he wasn't as wicked, he was like lead, he'd just drop to the bottom and die right away. So different Egyptians were given a different punishment based upon how evil they were. The verse, Mi kamocha ba'elim Hashem, who is like you among the powerful ones, God. We may have mentioned this once in the past. Mi starts with a mem. Kamocha, like you. Ba'elim starts with a beis. Hashem starts with the yud. That spells Maccabee. And the Maccabees were not, it doesn't mean that a hammer, they were muscles. No, they said, who is like you among the powerful ones, God? And they were not relying on their physical prowess, they were relying on God. And that's why it's such a shame that in Israel, the Maccabee games, or the Israeli Olympics, use the word Maccabee, because it's the opposite of the Greeks. We're not into showing with our bodies and showing physical prowess. They fought with faith, not with strength. And then the Torah tells us that Miriam, the sister of Aaron and Moshe, she took the women and they sang also praise to God. They took instruments and they sang as well, separately from the men. They finally leave the splitting of the sea. They got wealth from the Egyptians there. And they're heading along, and they travel 3 days, and they come to a place where there's water, but the water is bitter. It's undrinkable. And they ask, what are we going to do? We need water. And Hashem tells Moshe, don't worry. Put something in and it'll become sweet. And that's what happened. Now, what's interesting is that this verse, our sages learn out something that seems to be totally unrelated. Our sages learn out it was 3 days. What's the significance of that? That we shouldn't go 3 days without a Torah reading. Huh?
Yeah.
We don't go 3 days. So let's look at the calendar, right? We start the day with today, Sunday, no Torah reading. Oh, right away, Monday, yes, okay, 1. Tuesday, no Torah reading. Wednesday, no. Oh, Thursday, yes. Friday, no. Oh, Shabbos, yes. So that's why we always read, even if there's no holidays, no Rosh Chodesh, we always read the Torah at least 3 times a week, because we don't want to go 3 days without. So what's the connection? So I must tell you a beautiful interpretation from Rabbi Wasserman. Simcha Wasserman was a very special Jew who lived here in Los Angeles. He came from Europe. He and his wife had the most beautiful relationship. They unfortunately never had children. And Reb Simcha knew that he would never have children. Why? Because pre-World War II, his father, Rabbi Wasserman, a great Torah scholar, the dean of Yeshiva in Branovich, and who, by the way, the father was in America when World War II broke out and was raising funds for the yeshiva, and they tried to tell him, stay, because the things don't look good and the winds of war are coming to Europe. He says, I'm not going to leave my students behind. And he went back and actually was killed by the Nazis. But he didn't feel he could stay behind. But before World War II, people asked him advice, should we go to America? And he told people, I can't recommend you go to America because the dangers for children there are very great. There's not enough infrastructure settled. His son asked him, should I go to America? And he said, yes. And he knew that his father was so consistent that if his father is telling him he can go to America, it wasn't because he wants him to save him and everybody else he didn't care. He said he knew at that moment that he was not going to have children. And he never did. And he and his wife had a beautiful relationship and just a beautiful postscript to the story is he inspired people here in different places in the United States, including in Los Angeles. And when he passed away, his wife said, I really wanted to die at the same time that he died. But, because they were very, very close, and they were the cutest couple. But in any event, but she said, I'm glad that I didn't, because I want someone to be able to mourn for him. We never had any children. I want someone to be able to mourn for him. She lived 7 days, and after the mourning period, she passed away.
What?
Really very, very, very powerful, very special.
So because the father said he should go back, he knew right
He
then.
should go to the United States.
He knew that he wouldn't have children.
Right.
I guess I'm not even making the connection. Why?
Well, the reason why he was advising people not to go to America is because he was afraid that spiritually the children would be lost.
Yes, yeah.
But he helped raise children as a teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, he created these beautiful souls to become.
I'm sorry.
As a teacher here in LA.
Yes, and in other towns, yes, for sure, 100%. So he said in a very beautiful interpretation that explained the question. I gave you this whole introduction about him to explain this idea. Why do we learn from this verse about that 3 days? You know, they didn't have water for they were there for 3 days, and you know, what's the connection between the water and the reading of the Torah? And he said the following beautiful idea. He said, there's 2 things that make Jews remember that they're Jews. One is the study of Torah, and the other one, unfortunately, is when the Jews are banging our head and doing anti-Semitic acts to us. Those two things remind us that we're Jews. The Egyptians died. That part was over. They went 3 days, and all of a sudden, there's a problem. So that's why we learn from here that you have to learn Torah every 3 days, because the Torah is used properly is the antidote for remembering that you're a Jew, for keeping your strength Jewish wise. So I said to him, Rabbi Wasserman, I had the pleasure and honor of knowing him. I said, "Can I tell you a Hasidic thought?" He was of Lithuanian ilk, and maybe you'd like it. He said, "Okay, let me hear." So I told him, in the Song by the Sea, it says the water was a wall from right to left, because again, they were walking through the water, right? So I said, the Torah is compared to water. So if we study Torah, then the Torah is a wall for us right and left to go on the proper path, and we don't need the non-Jew to remind us, because we have the Torah, and he agreed with it. He agreed with the interpretation. So I was very happy that he liked that. Looking for one more thing if I can find it quickly. If not, we'll move on. Okay.
So is the commandments, is he positive, negative, or like the right much wall, the water, is that?
Yeah, and the study of it. That's correct. Okay. So now the problem is there are no 7-Elevens in the desert. What are they going to eat? And this is where the miracle of the manna from heaven came in. And the miracle of the manna from heaven was a very special miracle, that this bread from heaven flew down, and they had enough for that day. It didn't last. And if you wanted to make it last, as some troublemakers did do, then it got rotten and spoiled and smelly. With the exception of Friday, you got double portion for Friday and for Shabbos, which is, by the way, why on Shabbos we take 2 loaves of bread whenever we make a blessing on food, to remember the double manna that they received on Friday. Yes, Lynn.
Does the requirement of the Shabbos meals also come from this Parsha?
No, that's a different. That's different. Yeah. And what did the manna taste like? Whatever they wanted. It had the taste of whatever they wanted. So the question is, what blessing did you make on the manna? So when I asked my 5-6-year-old students, they said the blessing or whatever you would make on the food you're thinking of, which is good. That was a good answer.
Is there anything represented as sweet?
Well, it had if you didn't think of anything, yes, it had a sweet taste. But another opinion was, it's that the blessing they made was hamotzi lechem min hashamayim, the one who drew out bread from the heaven, as opposed from hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Okay. Now, what happened was that this was an important idea to teach the Jewish people an important lesson. One of the lessons is that if you get the manna from heaven every day, then guess what? You turn to God every day. If you get a big check once a year, imagine Hashem said, I'm going to give you manna for a year. Then you don't think about Hashem for the rest of the time. And this is a very important idea. As a matter of fact, a jar of the manna was saved and placed into the ark, which we're going to learn about in a few weeks. You look shocked.
I didn't hear that before.
That's why it's called the Jewish Lion Exchange and Lion stuff. And why? Because we need to understand that livelihood comes from God. We have to make our effort, but ultimately it comes from God. And but let me jump back a little bit for the manna for a second. I mentioned that Dasan and Avrohom, what they did was they were troublemakers. So they put manna out on Shabbos out into the field, and they said to the Jews, Moshe's wrong. The manna did fall on Shabbos. They were very contrary. But what happened was the birds came and ate up the manna before they got it. So when they came to show the Jews, most of the Jews didn't listen, but some who did come said, what are you talking about? There's no manna here. And in commemoration of the birds doing that job, there's a custom before Shabbos on this week to put crumbs out for the birds because they ate up the manna. So Dasan and Avrohom couldn't poke fun. This week, because this is the story from this week. Yes. The answer is yes before you say what the question is, but let me, what's your question?
Birds, right? Because I don't think everyone's on the same page about the feeding of the birds for this specific. Shabbos.
Why? Well, don't do it on Shabbos. On Shabbos gets more complicated, but do it before Shabbos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Again, it's just a custom. So it's very important to realize that that jar will be taken out later on in Jewish history, was taken out later on, where I said, don't overwork. Don't realize Hashem is the one who provides. And this, by the way, is a much longer discussion, which we're not going to have now. But this idea of we rely on ourselves to be financially fit, and we have to make an effort. As it says in the beginning of Genesis, by the sweat of your brow you will eat bread. But we still need to understand that ultimately it comes from Hashem, and we have to have a balance in our lives. You can't work, I rely on Hashem, but I'm working, 60 hours a week. That's not a good way of doing it. You have to have a balance of doing your effort and let Hashem's blessing flow from that, and not think that I have to work, and then work some more to make our livelihood. And that's why the manna was there to teach the Jewish people that for all time. Two more points. The Jews were complaining that they didn't have water to drink. So what happens is Moshe goes and hits the rock. And he causes the water to come out, and he provides the water for them that way. And why are they complaining? Hashem took such good care of them with the manna and everything else. And the saying goes, you can take the Jew out of Egypt, but it's harder to take the Egyptian out of the Jew.
There's probably instigators amongst the Jewish people, like you said.
Yeah, but people accepted what they said, and so Moshe had to do what he had to do. And the final thing in the Parsha is the war with Amalek. The wicked nation of Amalek. Amalek is the descendants of Esau, and they come and attack the Jewish people. And Moshe goes up to pray, and Joshua leads the battle, and he prays. And by the way, there's there are those that say that the Nazis were descendants of Amalek. So, because Amalek is fighting not for territory. It's not like they're trying to defend themselves or conquer land. It's just the eternal struggle of good against evil. The eternal struggle of good against evil. Hitler said something very powerful. He wrote that the Jews have brought two tragic things to the world that he is fighting against. One, against the body, circumcision, and two, conscience. And he wants to destroy that. And that tells you something very powerful. He wants to kill the conscience. That's the damage that he felt to the soul.
I read that expert. Yeah,
And our conscience is an important part of who we are, to make us think about what is right and what is wrong. So there's an eternal battle between them, and actually there's a mitzvah in the Torah that if in fact we that if we knew who Amalek was and we had the power, that we should still wipe them out. We don't know who Amalek is, and we don't have that power today, but that is a mitzvah in the Torah to get rid of Amalek, because again, there's an eternal fight between good and evil. And this is, which is another discussion, the clarity of what is good and what is evil, to have that. Because everybody says, well, it's your evil, you're good, it's subjective, everybody has their own, and that's not the Torah view. There is an objective good and evil, and therefore we can clearly say that Amalek and their descendants and the Nazis were evil, and fighting them would be a great mitzvah if we could, and doing what we can to perpetuate the goodness as opposed to the evil. I did want to mention last week someone asked a question about, unrelated to this, is about why is Rosh Chodesh a special day for women? And yes, it was related, as someone said, it is related to the fact that the women didn't give their jewelry and didn't sin with the sin of the golden calf, which we're going to learn about in a few weeks. All righty. Any questions, comments, thoughts, insights? Yes, Dave.
I understand the greatest miracle that came out of Egypt.
Dave, I'm going to use that thing to get.
There it is.
Go ahead, Dave. Take it away.
A man and woman, man could be with his wife for a date.
Just say it fast. Say the punchline, Dave.
And they go to an event.
Dave, say the punchline.
And they're going out and they're ready to leave. And the man's ready to go and he's
Dave, the punchline.
His wife is staying and schmoozing with everybody and delaying the departure.
So the greatest miracle of going out of Egypt was?
Both man and wife left together.
Very good. Thank you, Dave.
All right.
I'm the one who told it to you, Dave.
No, I didn't hear it, Rabbi. What was the greatest?
The greatest miracle that the men and women left at the same time.
I'll have to think about that.
No, in other words, because when what happened was I went to a kiddush one time and we had celebrations in the community. Someone was making a bar mitzvah or something, so I went there, and as usual, I will stand outside. When I'm done, I say go inside, say Mazel Tov. My wife will meet many people and take longer, so I'm waiting outside. I'm asking the women that are going in to please call my wife out. And then I say these jokes to the people outside, the biggest miracle going out of Egypt was the men and women left at the same time. And I'm waiting 10 minutes. And then I realized my wife didn't come to the kiddush.
That's better still. Thank you, Rabbi.
You're very
You'd
welcome.
still be waiting.
What?
You would still be waiting.
I'd still be waiting. And I came home and I told her, and she said, oh, I thank you so much for thinking of me, even though I wasn't there. She took it as a plus. Okay, any other questions, thoughts, or comments? Take care. All the best, Diane. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Take care. All the best. Michelle, you have something to say you wanted to add? No, you going? Okay. Take care, all. Are you raising your hand? You're upside down, sideways? I don't know. Andy? I don't know. You're sideways. Okay. Everyone have a great week. All the best. We are having a class, God willing, here in LA with Rabbi Marcus on the mystical connection between the holidays of Purim and Pesach. Hope you join us for that here Monday night, February 20th.
All the
All
best, to you, Rabbi.
Thank you. You too. All
Thank
the
you,
best.
Rabbi.
Take care, Bracha. All the best regards. Take care.
I
Take care,
will,
Beverly.
thank you.
Take care. Malka, take care.
That's to your husband.
You're very welcome. Take care. Take care, lady. God willing.